Hey guys, it's Mr. Schmidt here, and in this video we're going to start the next unit in the course, Perfect Competition. So before we start with the topic of profit, I just want to stress how important this unit is and also how difficult this unit is. There's a lot of material in this unit, there's a lot of complexity to this unit, and it is a unit that is frequently tested on the AP micro exam. And so it's really important that you double, triple your effort in this unit to be successful. So in the last unit, we talked about a firm producing products, producing output, and the cost of producing that output. But again, the goal of it is what we've kind of ignored, which is this profit, right? If we're a firm, want to make a profit by selling our product and hopefully making more money selling that product than it's costing us to make. So that's what I want to focus on in this video, is talking about how, to begin to talk about how do firms make a profit, and then in future videos look at specific types of firms and how they maximize profit. So the first thing that we need to define here is total revenue. Okay, total revenue, we're going to abbreviate that as TR, and it is not the same thing as profit. So total revenue is basically a formula. It's price times output. So however much output I'm producing times the price per unit that I'm selling gives me total revenue. So if my price per unit is $7, I sell 5 units, total revenue is $35. Pretty straightforward. Now, profit, in the most generic sense, is equal to total revenue minus total cost. So I take how much money I'm generating by selling my output, subtract out total cost, which we talked about in the last unit, and how to calculate that, and then subtract those two from each other, and then we get profit. Now, in the last unit, I keep referencing that, we did talk about a firm's cost, and I want to think about a firm's cost in one more way. And so I want to introduce something called explicit costs. So explicit costs are the cost of using someone else's resources, right? So this is what you tend to think of as a firm's cost, right? Like if I go buy some lumber from some business for my business, that's an explicit cost, right? It is an outlay of money to buy someone else's resources, right? So like if I pay my worker a wage, right? I'm paying to use someone's labor. That is an example of an explicit cost, right? So if I'm paying for someone's resources, that is an explicit cost. Now compare that to the idea of an implicit cost. So when you think of implicit cost, I want you to think of the opportunity cost of using resources, right? So for example, if I decide to start my own computer business, then one of the implicit costs of doing that is the salary I would have earned by continuing to teach, right? So I'm giving up that salary in order to start this business, right? So really, like students often try to get too far into the weeds on this. Implicit costs are simply the opportunity cost of using your resources, right? It's the opportunity cost of doing business. And what an economist would say is that it's really important for a rational business to think about not just their explicit costs, which is what you would see like on a business's accounting documents, but also the implicit costs, what they could have been doing with that money instead of buying the resources, starting the business. A great example of this that I like to give in class is the idea of Bill Gates opening a lemonade stand. So everybody knows Bill Gates, founder of Microsoft, billionaire, crazy rich guy, right? Well, if Bill Gates would have said back in the 1970s and 80s, hey, instead of starting Microsoft, I'm going to build a lemonade stand, right? And so if Bill Gates built a lemonade stand, he would be thinking about the explicit costs, right? The cost of the lemons, the cost of the water, all the cost of the sugar, all of that. But an economist would say, Bill, you got to think about your implicit cost too, which is all the money you could have been making at Microsoft, right? So if Bill just thinks about his explicit costs, he's probably missing out, right? Because everyone would tell Bill, listen, Bill, what about the implicit costs? All the money you're going to lose, the billions you're going to lose by not starting Microsoft. So economists would say, hey, businesses, don't just think about, your explicit costs. Think about your implicit costs too. And so that leads to two types of profit. The first one is called an accounting profit. Accounting profit is equal to total revenue minus just your explicit costs. And this is likely what most businesses focus on when they're thinking about profit, right? Like the profit that you guys see businesses reporting is their accounting profit, right? There's no line on a business's documents that say, okay, these were our opportunity costs, right? But economists say there pretty much should be, right? Because if you could make money, more money doing something else, why aren't you doing that, right? It's very simplistic to think about it in terms of just dollars, but that's what we're doing here. Whereas an economic profit, okay, because of course economists are so arrogant to say that the better one, we have to put the name economy in there, is total revenue minus all costs, both explicit and implicit. And so what I was using with Bill Gates earlier was the difference between accounting profit, which is just using the cost of the lemons, the sugar, etc., or economic profit, which is total revenue minus all costs. And so your economic profit, by and large, is always going to be smaller than your accounting profit because you're including all costs, not just explicit costs. And so from this point moving forward, anytime I just say the word profit, I mean economic profit. So we're making the assumption that all businesses take into account their opportunity costs. Do businesses do this in real life? Consciously, no. Subconsciously, yeah. They might be thinking about, okay, I could be doing this, this, or this, especially small businesses where they're run by individuals who have, could be doing a lot of different things. And finally, one particular example of an economic profit is an economic profit of zero, and we call this a normal profit. And you'll see later in the unit why it gets this name of a normal profit. Why is it normal not to earn any economic profit? Why do we call it that? So we'll talk about that later in the unit. But what you need to take away from this video are what's an explicit cost, what's an implicit cost, and how do I calculate economic profit and accounting profit. So that's all for this video, introducing you to the concept of profit. Until next time, have a great day.